Actually, I think I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show that Whole Foods are the guys that fed our musicians tonight.
They did.
Incredible food back in the green room.
Incredible.
So one more thanks for them. Up talking to me now, the guy you heard open our show so beautifully, David Grier. One more time for David. It's great to come to Nashville and meet your heroes, and I can legitimately say this has happened in this case. So I love your story about growing up at the picking parties in your house, and that's one. I mean, that's probably the best way of all to get into picking is when it's happening at your home. But then what happened? Did you go and get into bluegrass bands to figure out your guitar style? Because I think of you as a solo player, and the first time I heard you, you were making solo records. But did you go? What was the middle years like?
Well, I sat around the house playing guitar and copying everybody I could. I tried to copy Clarence White. I tried to copy Doc Watson. I tried to copy Tony Rice.
Yeah.
And then as a teenager, I talked my father into getting me a Telecaster because Clarence had one. Right. And so then I had to learn the vocabulary of the Tele. And then I got in a country rock band and stayed there for about 2.5 years, and then I moved here.
And then when you moved to Nashville, what year would that have been roughly?
About 84, 85, something like that.
Yeah. What were you looking for, and what did you find?
You know what? I come down here to play electric guitar with Ricky Skaggs.
Wow.
Because his guitar player left, and I heard he'd tried a bunch of different people from the West Coast, and they couldn't play the bluegrass part. And they didn't really know, and I thought, well, hell, I could do both, the electric guitar and the bluegrass part, and I thought that'd be a good fit. And I got about halfway down Highway 81 in Virginia. I heard on the radio that Ricky Skaggs has decided to play the electric guitar himself. It's like, great, super. But I came down here anyway, and thanks to my friends, and Roland White was, kind enough to let me hang with him for a little bit, and I met some folks, and I was going to go home after I spent all my money. I moved down here with $800, and I thought, well, after that, I'll just go home and get a job. And then I realized, well, hell, I can get a job right here. So I worked the worst jobs just so I could quit whenever I got a gig.
Right.
And that's how I made it to stay here.
I think of your first recordings that I know of were on Rounder Records, which is a pretty prestigious place to be. What was your first recording for Rounder, and how did that come to be?
It came out in 1988, and the name of it's Freewheeling. And it came to be because I made a demo and sent it to them, and they wanted another. So I sent them the same one all over again, and then they accepted that one. They just wanted to boss me around a little bit and say, I'll do this and do that. And so I sent him the same one. He said, yeah, that's more like it. And I thought, well, there you go.
I'm also heard that you've got one of the rare abilities to take a bluegrass flat pick guitar and sit on a chair and play a whole set without any backup. You brought a light rhythm section here tonight. You actually brought a heavy rhythm section here tonight. But you can play solo, and for somebody that doesn't get to use all 4 or 5 fingers, that is a really challenging thing. Were you completely alone in doing that? As far as I know, I don't know any other bluegrass flat pickers who would do a 2-hour set with just a guitar alone.
Well, I'm not trying to forge any new trails or anything, but it was just a matter of either I could do that around the house, or I could do it in somebody else's house or somebody else's stage. And I found out that they'd actually pay me for it. And so, in between bands, it's either that or lean out that window and say, do you want fries with that? And so I thought I'd play the guitar instead.
We're so glad. Well, you've got the most recent CD is a departure. Every one of your records I could recommend. Most of them are in a traditional vein, but then this one, evocative, about a year and a half ago. Very eclectic, electric and acoustic guitars together. Your own composing. Just say a couple words about that before we go.
Well, yeah, it's some songs I wrote as a teenager, and some I wrote just a year ago, and all the songs in between. It's a bunch of songs I've written that I didn't really want to do in a bluegrass mold. And so I hired a drummer at the best, John Gardner. I hired so many great and wonderful musicians. And they really helped me not have it sound bluegrass. And yeah, there's some like bluesy stuff. It's all my songs, but different flavors. And so that's how that goes, evocative.
And it is that. Anything just in the future that you want people to know about? Any shows or you got any projects that you're finishing up?
I'm always traveling around. Check out my website. It's www.davidgrier.com. I think the schedule part's all out of date, but the store works fine.
There we go. David Grier, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the song. Thanks for the stories. We appreciate seeing you.